Welcome in. KSL Sports Front Page, Tom Hackett and Mitch Harper with you guys on this beautiful Monday. What is it? Monday, September 14th. The days are getting all jumbled, Mitch, so I do apologize. Hey, before we get started, I do want to just give a shout out to the University Federal Credit Union. We greatly appreciate their support and sponsorship as it makes the KSL Sports Front Page possible. If you guys are watching this on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, it doesn't matter. Comment away. We can see all the comments from all the different platforms. We would love for you guys to get involved in some of the conversation. If you have questions surrounding BYU, Mitch is your man. Mitch Harper, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Tom. It's been a busy, weird start to the week, but happy to be on board here with you and talk a lot about sports. Should be a fun show.
It will be fun indeed, and let's get right into it. BYU adds LA Tech. Mitch, what do you make of this?
I like it. I mean, it's a pandemic-stricken season. If you can get any sort of games, great situation for BYU. And both these teams, BYU and Louisiana Tech, have been impacted by postponements recently. Obviously, BYU with Army, and Louisiana Tech last week had their game against Baylor postponed. So both teams needed some games, and there's been a history there between these two programs where BYU and Louisiana Tech have tried to schedule games in the past, but never could work things out. And now, during a pandemic, it works out, and BYU gets another home game. They fill that coveted Friday before General Conference spot. So, yeah, I like it. I think this is a good matchup that hopefully maybe BYU can get some additional games down the road with Louisiana Tech in future seasons.
Yeah, no, that would be neat. Hey, fill me in, and I'm sure many of our viewers also are unaware. LA Tech, have they played a game yet this season? And if so, how did it turn out for them?
They have not. Last week was going to be their opener against Baylor, but that got postponed. So no game yet for the Fighting Bulldogs out in Ruston, Louisiana. So BYU and Louisiana Tech, well, that'll be their third game of the season, and it'll be BYU's third game as well because the Cougars don't play until the 26th now.
Right, and as you can see by the headline here, Mitch, this is your article, obviously, but General Conference weekend is when this will be taking place, which is an interesting weekend to obviously play due to General Conference, but BYU has played on General Conference weekend many a time before, I imagine, in the fall, Mitch.
Yeah, and you know, ESPN is a great partner for BYU when it comes to accommodating these unique, religious weekends. BYU tries to avoid playing on that Saturday and Sunday when General Conference happens for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So that Friday night spot is always a great date for BYU football. And originally it was going to be Utah State, but BYU looked at all the options possible. And when Louisiana Tech got postponed with Baylor, that's when things really ramped up in the last 48, 72 hours between the two programs. And they ultimately got a game done. It's just so weird. And it breaks down the notion that we have to see college football teams schedule games decades in advance. Like I remember in the offseason when Utah announced the LSU series, I'm thinking, oh, sweet, Utah's going to have LSU come to Salt Lake. But then I'm like, oh, it's 2037. Like we don't need to see college football games scheduled 17, 15 years in advance. I mean, maybe we don't need to have it 2 weeks before, but it's breaking down this notion that these schedules need to be put together years in advance. You can, do it months before the season. That would work just fine. Hopefully that becomes a little bit of the new normal for college football in future years.
I'm with you, man. I've never understood why teams like Utah, BYU, and such schedule games 7 years out. I'm like, why do you need to? Because nobody knows what that specific. Let's say BYU schedules a team for 7 years out, or Utah does the same thing. Like the athletic director is currently involved. One may not be at the team by the time those two teams play, and two, nobody knows if that team's going to be any good anyway. So it's like a shot in the dark. It never made much sense to me. So I'm with you. I really hope that the pandemic, if it's taught us anything, it's that you can actually schedule games within a week if you really have to, but hopefully at least a couple months in advance. And then, hey, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, so I do apologize, but I imagine there are people out there that have been working all day today, that they're hearing the news, maybe even just now. Do you have any idea? Is this a good LA Tech team, or is that still to be determined? I imagine there'll be some sort of preview on the website closer to the game day.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a solid football team. I mean, BYU is loaded up on a handful of teams from Conference USA, obviously with BYU being the only team west of Texas playing football this fall. The options out west have not been there, so they've had to dive into Conference USA, the Sun Belt Conference. But Louisiana Tech should be a decent football team. I would say somewhere between, a 7 to 8 win team, top end of the Conference USA league. But I think that, this will be a good test, because I think that a lot of teams that BYU will face on this schedule, the names don't really ring a bell for the casual fan. But what you'll notice is that a lot of these teams, especially in the Southeast, they've got a lot of great skill position talent. And they'll create unique challenges for BYU during the season. But hey, BYU, to their credit, they look like a really good team. If they continue with the production that they put out a week ago, which feels like 5 years ago already, with how much has changed for BYU the last week, but they're nationally ranked. They're 1-0, and how they looked a week ago, they should be able to defeat anyone. I've said it boldly that I think that BYU should go undefeated this year. I don't know if that's too outlandish with how the schedule looks for BYU this year. Even if they were playing Army, Louisiana Tech, bring them on. BYU should run the table. If they're not playing any Power 5 teams, BYU should go undefeated this year.
Oh, okay. I can understand the method behind that, man. When you looked at the season just a couple of weeks ago, when prior to, of course, the Army game being canceled or postponed, whatever they're calling it, you'd say Navy, Army, and Houston were the 3 games, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mitch, but they were the 3 games I think most people were kind of looking at and thinking, okay, maybe, just maybe BYU may be tested in those games. But would you put LA Tech in replace of Army now?
Yeah, I would say Houston, then maybe Western Kentucky, who's the preseason Conference USA favorite, and then probably Louisiana Tech as well. I mean, again, we're looking at these teams and going, at the end of the day, BYU should win. They got more resources. They got more depth. I mean, we saw that firsthand against a Navy team that was 10th in stopping the run a year ago, and BYU just completely destroyed them. An ill-prepared Navy team. BYU looks like a squad that this is the year that they've been building towards. All the investment into the youth that Kalani Sitake has put in to his program the last few years, it's starting to have potentially a payoff. And man, it's frustrating that they can't play this weekend, because I got to say, if they did have the game in Provo, I think this game would be played coming up on Saturday against Army, but it's in the state of New York, and the regulations in that state, I think, were a big reason why we're not seeing BYU and Army in a nationally ranked matchup this Saturday. But Cougars got to move forward, and I think they're going to make the most of their opportunities and just understand that, hey, the season is not lost, and if you can get 8 games in, hey, that might be enough to give you a case to have an argument, say, should BYU be in the New Year's Six or the playoff? I mean, a lot of work to be done, I get that, but still, with how weird this year is, and if BYU can dominate their opposition like they did a week ago, why not BYU this year in a weird pandemic-stricken year?
You kind of answered my next question there. I was going to say, what is the ceiling for this BYU team? And maybe, just maybe, a New Year's Six Bowl could be on the cards. I do want to get to some other news as it relates to college football, Mitch, and this is kind of up the road from BYU. Of course, this is more Utah football centric than anything, but I still think it certainly warrants a conversation from both of us. The Pac-12 is targeting, according to a report from ESPN, it's worth noting, a return to full sports somewhere between the middle to the end of November. The reason behind this, Mitch, I'm sure you know, but maybe some of our listeners, the reason behind this is this new testing system that the Pac-12 has started to implement with a company called Quidel Corporations. And essentially, the Cliff Notes version on on Quiddell is they produce tests, saliva-based, I believe, that warrant results in as fast as 15 minutes. And the report from ESPN also suggests that the Quiddell Corporation testing systems will be on every Pac-12 campus by the end of this month. So to refresh some memory for everybody out there, it was just a couple of weeks ago that Larry Scott, the commissioner of the Pac-12, came out and said, hey, we're partnering with these Quiddell guys. We're going to experiment the testing with, and I can't remember what group of people. Maybe it was somewhere, Cal Berkeley or somewhere on the West Coast up by where the Pac-12 are headquartered. But they said, look, it'll take probably 3 odd weeks until we get a better understanding as to just how accurate the tests are, whether they actually work in as little as 15 minutes and produce results. And from all reports, or at least the report that came out this afternoon from ESPN, Mitch, it seems like the tests are doing what they were meant to do. And there's a good chance. I don't want to say good chance because I don't really, you never know, but there is a chance that the Pac-12 could be playing football before 2021.
Yeah, and I think that would be great if they did. It makes me frustrated, Tom, that both the Pac-12 and the Big Ten a month ago didn't just say, maybe let's pump the brakes. Let's have an extra, maybe we'll start the season October 1st and wait another month to kind of get more intel and more data and more information about this pandemic, because we're all navigating it together. And you would think that, you would have thought that making a decision to postpone in mid-August just didn't make sense at the time to completely punt on the football season. The lucky for the Pac-12, though, they've been a little bit more transparent than the Big Ten, and the uproars in the Big Ten have been very loud, very vocal. Doesn't feel like there's been as much anger in regards to maybe Pac-12 communities and markets. Much bigger places in the country, obviously bigger media entities, LA, so forth. But, I hope that we see Pac-12 football back. I hope we see Big Ten football back, because I'm not going to lie, Tom, it's just been strange this year to watch a college football game and go, well, what does this mean? Like, I'm watching Houston Baptist and Texas Tech, and usually that's a typical game in September, FCS, FBS, but I'm going, what does this mean? Like, is this could this end at all? Like, it's so weird what we're experiencing right now, but I wish that these two leagues would have been a little more patient a month ago and just said, hey, maybe we'll start in October 1st and continue to evaluate our options. And I don't think anyone would have complained. But now with the whole, we're postponing, we're going to wait till January 1, or we're going to wait till 2021, it's left this uproar going, why did you guys do this when we're seeing teams like Louisiana Tech, who I mentioned, teams from the Sun Belt, they're able to play, but Utah can't play, Ohio State can't play? Come on, like, let's get this thing off the ground. Let's make it work. These players are going to be as safe as they possibly can be at these team facilities. I believe that. And let's try to make this thing work and see Pac-12 football back sometime this year.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And that was kind of the take I had as soon as I heard that the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, for that matter, because it kind of went hand in hand with one another, decided to cancel or postpone their season. I just didn't understand why they decided to make the decision then and there. That was silly to me, and it turns out they probably wish they had have thought that through a little more, because they're now reconsidering and potentially going, which is good, by the way. And even if, hopefully, if you're a BYU fan, you hope to see Utah come back and play as well, because it's good for the game, it's good for the sport, it's good for the state here, and it's good for KSL Sports. So if anything, just be happy for us, I guess. Hey, we have a comment that's in line with our conversation. It's from Facebook. Stephen Carter joins the conversation. He says, real talk, who wants to play in Salt Lake City or Boulder, Colorado in December/January? And I think, Mitch, he brings up a pretty good point.
He does. And that's it's not ideal, but nothing about 2020 has been ideal. And I think that if you're the Pac-12 and you want to get in potentially that TV revenue from ESPN and Fox, and if you can somehow start the season and make it safe and have this quick, rapid testing results, you make that happen. Because, I mean, everything that we've heard from the University of Utah, you've been covering it, and so is Trevor Allen on KSLSports.com. But, I mean, I read your guys' stories. Mark Harlan, 50 to 60 million loss potentially without football this fall. I mean, it's been well documented about the furloughs at the University of Utah athletic department. Everyone is going to be impacted in some shape or form. If you can recuperate some costs when you're seeing other teams around the country are playing games, they're making it work. Let's see this. Let's see the season happen. I mean, Notre Dame this week, they announced they got 2 cases of COVID-19 on the roster, but they're still going to play this weekend against South Florida. And I think that this state, luckily for Utah, that they're in a state where they could have the opportunity to play. I think what's hurting the University of Utah, maybe the Pac-12 as a whole, is potentially the state of California. They're very hesitant about going forward with COVID-19, and that could be, the ultimate thing that deters maybe Pac-12 football from being played at all in 2020. But maybe this testing and these changes can hopefully bring back the conference season in November. And I think also Larry Scott's job kind of relies on it. If he wants to be staying as the commissioner of the Pac-12 conference, he's got to show some leadership and get the sport back, the moneymaker sport that is football, back in November. And I think it could go a long way for him to getting some job security, which feels on thin ice right now at the moment.
Sure. And I guess, it was just a few months ago, there was still so much unknown surrounding the virus. And look, don't get me wrong, that there is still a lot of unknown today. But I think what we've learned over the course of a handful of months is you just take a look at what Major League Baseball have been able to do. And I know they had a few hiccups early, but they've seemed to be able to get back on track. Now the NFL's kind of jumping into the same conversation. That there aren't necessarily bubbles required to play competitive matches of whatever kind. And I think hopefully the Pac-12 is realizing that. And the bottom line is you've got to figure out a way to play. The virus is going to be around, Mitch. Until we get a vaccine, we're dealing with the virus, and that's just the bottom line. And it's unfortunate, and it sucks, and nobody likes it, but it's reality. And I do think there are ways without utilizing a so-called bubble to be able to play competitive games. And I think the MLB and the NFL, as of late, have been at the forefront of that. Hey, Mitch, before we get out of here, where can people find you on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook?
Yeah, Mitch_Harper on Twitter, Mitch Harper KSL on Instagram. I'm not popular enough to just get Mitch Harper at my but maybe someday I'll get that. And then, of course, on KSLSports.com, just go to the BYU tab. See all the podcast articles, all that stuff. We'll have more content throughout the week on BYU football, a little bit of basketball news. We're going to get some word on what the college basketball season is going to look like this week. So a lot coming up this week on KSLSports.com.
Mitch, you've been great to join me on late notice. Hooray for your Las Vegas Raiders. Big shout out, of course, to University Federal Credit Union. Again, we do love and appreciate them with everything we have. Mitch, be well. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Sit back, get on the couch, and watch some Monday Night Football, would you?
I will, Tom. Thank you so much. And it's a lot of fun. We'll have to do it again.
See you, man.